Shemai. Today we're on a bit of common ground in the local village, and we're going to have a look at hornbeam, or Carpinus betulus, or oystroedd in Welsh. And it's a native deciduous medium-sized tree. It'll grow to sort of 25 to 30 metres tall. And if it's managed, for example, coppiced or pollarded, and we've spoken about that before, it can actually live to up to about 300 years old. And it's this one here. And as you can see, they can form quite a dense, rounded crown, and actually in an open space, if it's not in a line of trees like this one, they can form a beautiful kind of conical shaped crown, really identifiable, with the branches sweeping all up like that. And it is a really lovely tree, and it's very common in parks and excuse me, parks and hedges like we've got here, and it's tolerant of regular cutting, so on the edges of fields and things like that, it can handle being cut and trimmed. Now, it's often found in hedgerows, as we've seen here, or in mixed woodlands, and actually in, like we say, in parks and especially sort of communal spaces, because they do form a beautiful dense sort of shade tree. So on days like today, you can take cover underneath it. I've come in under the shade now, out of the sun for a second, just to have a look at this bark. Now, the bark of hornbeam is smooth and grey and has a very similar look to beech. And as it gets older, it gets these sort of cracks and fissures, as you can see here. Hornbeam leaves have stalks which are about 5 to 15 millimetres long, and the leaf itself can be anywhere between sort of 5 centimetres and all the way up to about 11 centimetres long, and they're oval with this double toothed edge, and they come to this sort of terminal point by here. They've got conspicuous veins, and you can see them there quite clearly, the lines of the veins coming out from the central sort of rib there, and they're dark green above and paler beneath. There we go, as you can see there, with, you can't see it on there, but the veins can often be hairy there. Now in the autumn, they turn this beautiful golden yellow to an orange, and lots will stay on the trees through the winter, which makes it, like I said before, a popular amenity tree, and why it's planted in parks and things, not just a graceful shape to it, but also for this lovely autumn sort of colouring that it has. Hornbeam flower between May and June, and the flowers come out at the same time as the leaves, and they're male and female on the same tree. So the male catkins are sort of drooping, they're about 4 to 7 centimetres long, and the female are sort of these loose catkins that are about 2 to 3 centimetres long, much shorter. And then those flowers will turn into these fruit here, which will be ripe in around about October time. Now we're sort of in July, and they end up as these sort of loose hanging clusters up to about 15 centimetres long, and the wind's blowing them around. And the nutlets are flat and oval, and there's a single seed at the base of the 3-lobed bract, and they're green at first, as you can see here, and they'll ripen to like a yellow brown. Now if I can reach up and just sort of show you there, so you can see the cluster there, and they will sort of drop off and sort of, I guess, hopefully spin the seed away from the plant, catching the wind. It's quite similar to the lime tree that we looked at. Hornbeam, the name is said to originate from its use as oxen yokes, which was a hard piece of wood that was put with the horns of an ox, which is a type of cow, for pulling things behind, so whether it be ploughing or whatever it may have been. Another reason may be because in Old English, horn also meant hard, because obviously horn off animals is very hard. So the horn meaning that the wood was very hard, which hornbeam wood really is very hard, and it's very rarely used in traditional crafts because it can blunt the tool so easily. It's also got another name, which is candlewood, and that's because when it's burned as a firewood, it burns very bright and hot. Now, it's one of the hardest woods in Europe, and that's why, you know, like I say, is this link to horn being very hard. Now, hornbeam is a really good tree for wildlife, for animals and insects. In fact, we've seen some shield bugs on the leaves since we've been under here. But it's also very good for nesting birds and small mammals. Nesting birds, because it keeps the leaves through the winter, when they turn brown. And also, the birds and the mammals will eat these small little seeds that we had a look at that hang off the tree through sort of autumn and the winter. The hardness of hornbeam as a wood made it really, really useful and quite valuable in the past, because it was used for things like cogs in machinery, for pulleys, for mallets, for chopping blocks, particularly butcher chopping blocks, and also some parts of pianos. Now, it also makes a very good charcoal, and we've looked at making charcoal in the past. Now, in the Roman times, hornbeam was used to make parts of the chariots because of its strength, and we said, it's an incredibly strong and hard wood. In medicine also, the leaves were used to stop bleeding and heal wounds. A tonic made from hornbeam was said to relieve tiredness and exhaustion, which might be useful in a day like today, which is so hot. I'm feeling very tired and quite exhausted. Unusually for a native tree, hornbeam really doesn't have, or has virtually no sort of folklore associations. There was nothing that I could find or I could read about, which is really quite unusual for a native tree. So there we go, hornbeam. It is a common tree, but it's not always that easy to find. Like I say, it can be confused with beech because the leaves look quite similar, the bark can look quite similar, but once you recognise and find a hornbeam, I think you'll be quite impressed by them. They really are lovely, and especially this time of year now when those seeds are starting to form in those sort of hanging clusters, well worth going out to have a look. So there we go, the hornbeam. See if you can find it, and good luck.